This is the Wally Show, and today we have Plumb on the show. This is very exciting, and she is the lady that has that song right there that you know, Need You Now.
That one.
The
right
one
there.
you're hearing. That is a great song, quite honestly. And I think that's a song that is going to be very influential in a lot of people's lives. I think that'll help a lot of people because of the honesty in it. And so I'm curious, like, I had heard that your life has just been absolutely perfect the last couple years with no drama whatsoever.
None. No drama.
So it's weird that a desperate cry-out song like that would seem to originate out of you.
What are the chances?
So we haven't talked in a while. What has been going on with you? Like,
a lot.
Like, start at the beginning.
A lot.
No, like,
are you sure you want me to start at the beginning?
Yeah, like what's some of the drama? Because here's the thing, man. Like for Christian artists, being honest about their lives can almost be career suicide sometimes.
True.
Is that am I being accurate?
Depends on the content.
Yeah.
If you will. But for me, this song was originated out of it was inspired by my struggle since I was 13 years old with panic attacks and anxiety, where they manifested themselves with really debilitating, like socially paralyzing, mind you, also painful stomach aches, just
really
unbelievable. Like some people get shortness of breath, headaches, blotchiness, whatever, a racing heart. Mine would be these stomach cramps that I would want to hide, and I would say no to things that I wanted to go to because I started to kind of get paralyzed by fear of just, well, I'll probably get sick and get one of my stomach aches. I'm not going to go. Or I'm not going to go on this date or this missions trip or this youth event or this, whatever. And so the song sort of birthed out of just the times that I was literally in the high school bathroom stall crying out, like, please help me right now. Like again, like how many times I had to cry out. And it was so bad sometimes that I was like, if this is going to be my life, I'm not sure I really want to live. I wasn't suicidal, but I was completely fine with death a few times of just being it was so painful. And I went 6 years from 13 to 19 without going not a day without having at least one in a day, sometimes multiple, and sometimes they would last for a really long time. I'd been into the emergency room, had all kinds of tests ran, and every time they would say, no, she's perfectly healthy. Are you sure you're not a hypochondriac? And it was just like, oh, goodness.
Did you ever get that great advice? Well, Jesus is hope and peace, and so you must not be...
Just cling to Jesus.
Yeah, just, you're not living right, or you must not have enough faith and things like that. That's a tough one.
So I wrote the song just about how desperate I needed him, and then I was done with it. We mixed it, mastered it, boom, everything was finished in October of 11. And then 2 days after Christmas in that same year, just a couple months later, the bottom fell out of my life.
Like what?
Like literally the bottom fell out. I started to lose everything in my life. My husband and I separated.
Oh, no way.
2 days after Christmas.
I thought I had heard that, but I'm real careful about rumors that I hear because half the time they're not true and things. And like for me, like where I hadn't talked to you in a while, I'm like, I don't want to
assume
further that
or
assume it or whatever. But I had heard that. So that's one of those things that for a Christian artist is difficult for people to understand because they put you on this pedestal, but they forget that you are a real person working through a real marriage every day with the same exact struggles that come with that.
Yeah.
And so, like, was there a fear of even sharing that with people and letting that out of the bag, so to speak?
I will say that when it initially happened, I could hardly breathe. I had a hard time with just a rational thought, and I imagine someone drowning almost. So you're grasping at anything. You're reaching out, and you're asking friends, and you're asking pastors, and you're going to the literally. I went through a long line of random various things to just determine what of this is mine to own. Right.
We're talking to Plumb. Like the end of all of that, what came down to your answer? Like what was the thing? Okay, this was what did us in for now. And like then you got to go, okay, well, I want to fight for this or, how do I do that? So
we definitely have a choice to make. Well, we got broken together. And I think if you almost imagine a huge piece of glass and it just is, super strong, super thick, and you feel it's transparent, and you think this is a really strong piece of glass. And then there's like these little nicks and dings that happen, and you're like, I can't barely see that one. It's not a big deal. Oh, well, here, just shift it over here, and you can't see that crack over here as much. And then busyness getting so busy and so overly extended financially, emotionally, relationally, just in friendships, and being so scattered almost in every way. It's like we had all these plates spinning. And I remember saying to him at one point, you know, I just hope at some point one of the plates that falls is not us. Like if it's our finances, you know, maybe we can bounce back from that. But if it's our marriage, you know, that's just not, you know, it's just not worth it. And so the plates drop, and we started to, I mean, it involved everything. And it was all, you know, half his fault, half my fault. And you kind of just have to own what's yours. And it's like, I couldn't change him. He couldn't change me. And so I think some of the details of our story are shameful. And I don't think that they bring glory to God to talk about. And some of them are just life. And I think it's more our response to that circumstance that
right, because regardless of how you got there, I think what's important, because a lot of people get there in their lives, and so I think what people are wondering is, all right, well, I've been where you're at right now, or I am where you're at right now. How do I get out of that? Like, what was the key? And so here I'm going to do the whole game show thing. We'll find out what the key is in 10 minutes. You're going to have to listen for 10 more minutes if you want to find the way to save your marriage with Plumb here on the Wally Show. I know that was a horrible thing to do, but I'm out of time.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
This is the Wally Show, and that's like one of the most haunting but beautiful songs cut by Plumb. And we have Plumb with us here in the studio, which is awesome. And so we left off, I did this horrible thing where I left off, you know, a cliffhanger of an answer.
Oh, big time cliffhanger. Yeah. Like people are like, oh.
Exactly. But to catch you up in case you're just joining us. Okay, so Plumb, obviously Christian artist, and everyone thinks your life is going great. You get to a point where it all caves in on you, to the point where you and your husband even separate. And you're sitting there now going, okay, well, we figured out it's partly my fault, it's partly your fault. How do you go about rebuilding that marriage? Because I know there are a lot of people that are in that place right now that are listening and are like trying to grab anything they can to save their marriage. So like, how did you guys do that then?
Top of the list is we went to a Christian marriage and family therapist. I think that is hands down, if someone is in that kind of a circumstance, that is the first thing you need to seek after, is a Christian marriage and family therapist. So we were in therapy with her. We still go to her, and being vocal with a trusted community, finding a circle of people that don't just love you and that don't just love him, but that love you all. Like, it's so easy to find a girlfriend that's like, he said that.
That's right.
You know, and it's like, And my therapist actually said to me at one point, she said, if you ever find yourself in a conversation with someone where you're defending Jeremy through this, she said, you need to that doesn't mean you can't be nice to them. It doesn't mean you can't, quote unquote, be friends with them, but you need to back away, and they need to leave your circle of the vital people of trust that you're dealing with, because they are more than likely wanting to appease you. And they may be well-intended.
Right.
But at the same time, you need people in your life that are for your marriage, not for you. And people that are willing to say, okay, well, here's some stuff you can own. And then being willing to make changes and own what you can own and change what you can change. And in all of that, in total trust and surrender to God of saying, whatever you decide. And that's hard. I know that every circumstance does not turn out like ours, because fast forward, we reconciled. We were separated for a total of almost 6 months, and which was in part is why the record "Need You Now" didn't come out until February of 2013.
Really?
Because what do you do when you have songs on the record that talk about how much you love your husband and how much you delight in your relationship? And it was like, do we take these songs off? Do we just cancel the record? Are you going to drop me? Like, what's gonna, how is this gonna happen? Is Christian radio, how are they gonna receive this divorced artist who,
And it's tough, because the answer should be, we receive you with open arms and love you and walk you through it, because the next one that's pointing the finger, it could be them.
Right.
And so that's the thing, but we kind of
doesn't always look like that.
Yeah, we don't always do the best job at that. I think it's kind of like why NASCAR drivers don't visit other NASCAR drivers in the hospital. And I get that analogy from Days of Thunder, not from real NASCAR.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I think that because there's a fear that it can happen to you. And so if this person person who you put all this faith and trust in falls, you're like, oh my goodness, that could be me. Like if they're way better than I am. I'm host.
Right. And
we forget that, again, it's people are people, regardless of what you do for a living. This doesn't define you.
Right. And so I remember, it's sort of emotional for me to even be here, because I've done a few interviews where I've said, quote unquote, Christian radio, but it was more specifically Way FM.
Yeah.
That I was at my house and I turned on the radio, and it was my house at the time, we've moved, but my house at the time, Way FM was the only station that could come in clear. We lived a little bit out in the boondocks. And so thank you for having a strong enough single.
Not a problem.
To get to my house.
Yeah, I did that. I have aluminum foil and a coat hanger. I made that happen.
And I was in my kitchen, and I heard Aaron Shoes say, "My hope is in you all the day long.
Yeah.
I won't be shaken," by Josh. And I hit the ground in my kitchen. And I, for the first time in my life, became a Christian music listener. I've been a Christian since I was 8. I've been a Christian artist since I was 21. But I have totally played the too cool for school role, where you're like,
interesting.
I don't always listen to Christian music.
Right.
And wanting so badly for the mainstream to accept you, but at the same time, you never say that out loud. And you say that you're not in this for fame and fortune, but really you kind of want to be famous and you kind of want to make money.
Us. Yeah.
And just almost being cynical about it, and realizing in that moment I became the listener. I was hopeless, and I needed hope. I feel a sense of belonging, a sense of home. And it's like, okay, after this song, what's the next song going to be? And then, Mac Powell says, I need a miracle.
Wow.
And then, Matthew West, and then it just Mandisa, like one after the other, were just saying things that I was like, I need to hear this. And it was like, these are people, many of which are friends of mine, but it was like they weren't my friend at the time on the radio. It was just God speaking through them.
That's the thing I love about this, is because the thing about the music that we play is that it is the truth of God presented in different ways, but it is His truth that will hit you sometimes like nobody else. And the funny thing is, the full circle part of this is that you then have this song, Need You Now, that is doing the exact same thing for somebody else that's hitting the floor in their kitchen and can't see up from down, but this song is what's going to give them the strength to go one more day.
Right.
And it all was born out of this thing, and it's that full circle thing that God does so well with our stories, which is just a beautiful thing.
I just felt so much love and hope and peace. And when I would leave the house, I would go into the car and then turn it on the radio. I wanted it on, and I literally, I believe that the enemy hates the name of Jesus. And so I would, while we were separated, and even still, like right now, my dog is listening to Way FM right now. He's in his crate at my house, listening to Way FM. I left it on all night long. It just stayed on all the time. Whether I was home or not, it was on, because I just wanted that in my house, and I wanted that in my ears. And I was like, okay, this is giving me, like, even if we end up divorced, there is a sense of peace that comes from knowing that my hope can be in Him, and that I can trust Him to never leave me, to never forsake me, to never give me more than I can bear. Because right now I don't feel like I can take any more. And I had to believe that the fact that I was breathing in and out and I was making it through the day, God clearly is carrying some of this load for me, because this is nothing I ever planned on. And so there's lots of reasons that I'm here today, and obviously it's, to talk about a song that I hope people love and that they buy, but it's, my complete perspective on Christian music and in my role in Christian music has completely changed. And so that attitude that I had is gone, and a lot of the fears that I've had are starting to dissolve, because He's done a miracle in my home.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things where you want to fight for your marriage, and that's awesome that you do, and you were willing to, and I think that's like great advice for people. And to continue to fight even when the other person isn't. That's got to be the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Because we've had friends that have been in that situation where you got one person that's putting in and fighting, and then it's not being met with, oh, wow, you are changing. It's being met with more hostility.
Right.
And how do you continue to fight through that? Like, I can't even imagine how tough that is for people to walk through that.
It is really rough. And you're right, when you feel like you're the only one fighting. But the truth is, on the other side, where my husband was living, he was in a battle as well. And just the way he responded to his battle and to everything that was kind of going on with him. Like his changes that he needed to make were different than mine. And so some of his responses and his behavior would be obviously different than mine. And so from my vantage point of like, well, you're not fighting as hard as me. But the truth is, he was in his own different way.
Battle. Mm-hmm.
And it was February 12th, 2012, and we were sitting at in East Nashville at 5 Points Pizza. He had asked if he could meet the kids and I for pizza. We sat down, and I hadn't looked him in the eye for a while, just right in his eyeballs. And we were sitting there, and he had ordered pizza, and we were getting our beverages, and I looked up at him, and I made eye contact for the first time in a while. And it was like you turned sort of a spigot on in both of our faces. And I looked at him, and I said, "It's you."
Oh, weird.
And he was like, "Hi."
Wow.
And I was like,
that has romantic comment, or that has chick flick romantic drama thing, romantic movie written all over it.
And he just looked at me and he was like, "Just don't say anything else. Just let's enjoy our pizza." And so we just enjoyed our pizza. But in that moment, I was like, I had needed and I have a song called One Drop. I needed just a little bit of hope. And I saw it. In that moment, I was like, everything's not fixed, but there's hope right now. And I was overwhelmed.
It's interesting that you bring up that one drop because I want to get to that as well because it also has another association with somebody that we work with that I believe in their ministry so much. And so we'll do that in 10 minutes.
How many times have you heard me cry out, God, please take this? How many times have you given me strength to just keep breathing?
This is The Wally Show, and we got Plumb live with us, and that is her song, Need You Now. And that is a great song, and it's a song that I think people need to hear. And especially if you've been with us at all as we've been kind of talking and stuff, you know that this, is a representation of a lot of hardship in her own life and her own marriage and all of that stuff. And thank the Lord it's been restored and healed and moving forward and all that good stuff. But you mentioned a song, One Drop, which I really like that song too. And you mentioned that in reference to your marriage and like seeing hope, and that's kind of where that song came from for you when that started turning around.
I wrote this record was finished, and when I went through everything in my marriage and whatnot in this last year, my record has been very prophetic. It's been spooky to me, and almost one of my very closest girlfriends was listening to it while I was going through what we were going through, and she was like, "Have you listened to your record lately? Like, good grief." She's like, it's like once, if you think about your circumstance, every song relates. I would think that you wrote the record now.
While you were going through it, but it was prior to that?
It was prior. And I feel like, again, what the enemy wants to destroy for evil, God can use for good. And I feel like my perspective on my record and what I have to say and the platform that I have and the purpose that I feel like is behind me is so different than prior to that I feel like that's one way that God, could stick it to the enemy and just say, you know what, these songs are going to have even bigger, deeper meaning now, thanks to your attempts at, trying to destroy. But yeah, One Drop was originally the day Matt and I were writing it, Matt Brownlee, my producer, and I, we had a potential commercial opportunity that we were sent by his publisher. And they said, there's this commercial looking for a song about a water campaign. And, we would love to see what you guys could come up with. And so I do best when I am writing about something that I'm passionate about as opposed to something mundane, like, oh, let's just write a random love song today. Right. Like I have to kind of tap into, okay, who is it I'm writing about and what? And so I just kind of took on the perspective of sort of the church and my marriage at the same time, of just the kind of correlation that the bride and his church and then the bride and the groom have to each other. And of just how much better we are together. Like we're good by ourselves, but we're great together. Mm. And so the song was basically just it just takes a little bit of good to create a whole lot of great. And it wrote it, and when we finished it, we did not get the commercial, by the way.
Bummer.
We were bummed about that, but I feel like this song has a lot of potential for.
Who was the commercial for? Did you ever find out?
It was Coke Coca-Cola.
Oh, no way, really? Because
Yeah.
I've seen it used in conjunction with Bloodwater Mission.
Yes.
And which is a better company anyway.
Which is
it's a
even
great
better, yes.
organization. And,
Yes.
and I've traveled throughout Africa with them
Right.
to see the work that they do. And
It is the
phenomenal.
perfect song for what they, and I support fully what they do, and I think Bloodwater Mission is amazing, and I think that they are making such a difference, and literally one drop at a time. And so when they came to me, and there's lots of mutual friends. Matt and I are both friends with Dan and
Right.
Mike
The guys from
Lenda
Jars
and
of
different
Clay
Jars of
and-
Clay
yeah.
and lots of different people, and Mike Lenda in particular with
Yeah,
Bloodwater.
he's actually in your video. I saw the video, and
Yes.
him and his kids are in there.
Yes.
He's a guy that works with Bloodwater, who actually is going to be traveling with Katie and I to Zambia here in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
As we go to see more of the work that they do, and then try to help them out when we get back.
Right. Well, and so he was like, this would just be perfect. And I was like, I would be honored for Bloodwater to have this song associated.
You know what's really funny about this, though, is we sat here and we had this planning meeting a couple weeks ago, and we were going over names for what we wanted to do for this event and stuff like this, and we came up with Drop in the Bucket, because the whole idea is, just a little bit, it's one drop in the bucket, and
Right.
pretty soon you fill the bucket up.
Right.
And so we come up with this idea, we're all loving it, we're like, yeah, that's what we're going to do, and then somebody goes, hey, Plum has a song called One Drop. We're like, what? And so, and we literally said it just like that, and we go and we listen to the song, we're like, oh my gosh, it had the campaign has a theme song, and she already loves Bloodwater. This is great, and we're not going to have to pay her. How awesome! Yay! Everybody wins, except for Plum.
Oh, no.